Hello everyone, my name is Brian, but you can call me the Bugler, and today we're going to be performing an exotic breakdown and analysis for the Titan Exotic Helmet and Insurmountable Skullfort. So let's get started. The Skullfort is an exotic helmet designed to be used with the Striker Titan subclass, and you won't see any benefit to using it with the other two subclasses because the exotic perk can only be triggered from arc melee kills. The exotic perk is called Transfusion Matrix. Arc melee kills will trigger health regeneration as well as restore your melee ability energy. Let's take a look at the melee ability restoration first. The melee ability we'll be talking about now is called Seismic Strike from the Code of the Earthshaker skill tree. After sprinting for a short time, your melee attack will become a shoulder charge that releases an arc explosion on impact. Let's take a look at the effects of the Insurmountable Skullfort in tandem with this ability. When you kill an enemy with Seismic Strike, you'll instantly recharge your melee ability energy, and this is regardless of the enemy tier that you kill. So as long as you get a single kill with this ability, you'll instantly recharge the ability energy. This has other implications with the Code of the Earthshaker skill tree, but we'll cover that later in the video. Let's take a closer look at the arc explosion that Seismic Strike causes. The Skullfort considers this arc explosion to be a part of your melee ability, so if you strike an enemy with Seismic Strike and do not kill them, but kill a second enemy with the explosion, you'll trigger health regeneration as well as restore your melee ability energy. Let's take a look at what we can do using the Skullfort during our super. With the Code of the Earthshaker skill tree, we're able to trigger health regeneration during our super on light attack shoulder charges. The heavy attack will not trigger health regeneration, only the regular shoulder charge. In addition to this, it's important to note that this is only triggering health regeneration, not granting the health as a flat bonus. So if you're damaged during the regeneration, it will stop. Let's take a look at if we can regenerate our ability energy during our super next. I'm striking this enemy to get our ability on cooldown, and then using a bunch of shoulder charges to make sure that we are proccing the Skullfort. At the end of our super, however, you can see that our ability energy has not been restored, meaning that you cannot regenerate your ability energy during your super with the Skullfort, only your health. Let's move on to the Code of the Juggernaut next, with the melee ability Frontal Assault. When you strike an enemy with this melee ability, you'll reload your weapon as well as grant yourself increased weapon stability. There are two other skills we need to mention as well. The first of which is called Reversal, which grants you health regeneration on any melee kill, so that part of the Insurmountable Skullfort will not play much of a role here. The other skill, and more important skill, is called Knockout. When you critically wound an enemy or destroy an enemy's shield, you'll have increased melee range and damage. Let's take a look at Frontal Assault first. Just like with Seismic Strike, when you get a kill with Frontal Assault, you'll instantly recharge your melee ability energy. So with this skill, that means you'll never have to reload, theoretically, as long as there are enemies around for you to melee kill. Now things get a little more interesting when you factor Knockout into this equation. When I did my Code of the Juggernaut breakdown, I said I considered Knockout to be almost like a second melee ability, and an Insurmountable Skullfort is confirming that for me here. If you trigger Knockout and get a kill with it and do not have melee ability energy, you'll fully restore your melee ability energy. Of course, that's because this is an arc-damaging melee attack. The game registers it as such and rewards you for doing so. Next, I did a little bit more testing with this setup during our super to see if we'd be able to regenerate our melee ability this way. In my Code of the Juggernaut breakdown, I proved that you'd be able to trigger Knockout as well as receive the bonus damage with your shoulder charge. However, just like with the Code of the Earthshaker, doing this will not regenerate your melee ability energy outside your super. This is a bit of a shame, but it does make sense. Before we move on to the potential of this exotic, I want to touch on some things I'm sure some of you are wondering. The first of which is arc swords, and swords will not trigger the effect of an Insurmountable Skullfort. The next thing I want to talk about is a little hunch that I had. I theorized that I'd be able to trigger this effect using a different subclass and an arc charge. Unfortunately, this is not the case. The arc charge, although it deals a bonus amount of damage as well as an effect, does not deal arc damage, as you can see in this clip. It will not cause an arc explosion when destroying an arc shield. Therefore, it will not work with an Insurmountable Skullfort. The next thing I'm going to answer, which I'm sure some of you are wondering, is its effect using Frontal Assault and Merciless, considering it's being sold this weekend. Unfortunately, you cannot continue to chain the increased firing rate with Merciless and Frontal Assault, so you won't see much of an increased effect here other than just restoring your magazine. Okay, now let's push the Insurmountable Skullfort to the limit, starting off with the Code of the Juggernaut's Frontal Assault. And as you can see, it's extremely helpful to be able to one-tap enemies and get that reload to continue fighting. The stability increase is also very helpful, and considering you'll basically never run out of it, it's a real cool thing to have on your side. Where you'll see the best benefit to using this setup is a weapon that has a long reload time. So my weapon of choice here is the Sweet Business, but you'll see just as high of an effect on any other weapon with cumbersome reload times, such as hand cannons. And now for the moment you've all been waiting for. I'm referring to the Code of the Earthshaker using the Insurmountable Skullfort and its incredibly high damaging double grenades. Thanks to the skill Aftershock, our melee ability, Seismic Strike, will restore grenade energy to us when we hit enemies with it. Paired up with the Insurmountable Skullfort, basically infinite melee attacks as long as we're killing enemies, and we can chain our grenades indefinitely, meaning we can deal an incredible amount of damage. The health regeneration is also a boon for the Code of the Earthshaker. Where the Juggernaut has access to a way to regenerate health intrinsically, the Earthshaker does not. So here we have additional survivability options offsetting what I believe to be one of the only downsides to using the Earthshaker skill tree in general. Which brings me to my opinion on an Insurmountable Skullfort, and basically, I think it's great, especially when paired with the Code of the Earthshaker skill tree. Unfortunately, the Code of the Juggernaut suffers a little bit from the intrinsic perk of this exotic because we already have a way to regenerate health, and it does not stack on top of the Insurmountable Skullfort's version. In fact, the version that the Juggernaut has access to is pretty much better in every way, considering it will trigger off every single melee attack and not just arc ones. So, when you use this exotic with the Juggernaut skill tree, you're actually losing out on half of the exotic perk. Now that doesn't make it bad. I had quite a bit of fun having infinite reloads and almost unlimited ammo and stability. However, if you want to get the most out of this exotic, and I'm talking most damage and most value, you should use it with the Code of the Earthshaker skill tree. And finally, I'll talk briefly about how I feel about how this exotic looks. And to tell you the truth, I think it looks pretty good. I don't really have any major gripes with it like I've had with some of the other exotics. It fits well with just about every shader in the game and doesn't look overly clunky or overly skinny, so you won't have an issue mashing it with some of your other armor pieces like I did with the Titan chest pieces. And for those of you who are really interested in fashion souls, I'd recommend slapping on a chest piece with some fur to make this exotic pop even more. And that's the end of this breakdown. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions about how I conducted the tests, or why I might not have included other footage, please let me know in the comments so I could answer them for you. In my next video, I'll be breaking down an exotic weapon, and I'm still putting off doing the Wardcliff coil because of all the glitches associated with it. I'm leaning towards the Fighting Lion, but give me your opinion in the comments below. As per usual, I'll be going live on Twitch shortly after this video is released in order to get sweaty in PvP. So if you'd like to join me, the link to my Twitch channel, as well as Patreon, Discord, and Clan, are in this video's description. So once again, thanks for watching, I hope I see you next time, and good luck getting through the exclusion zone.